I'm going to agree with Scott on this for a
What?
couple reasons. I am.
So both of
So
you are D tier. Both of you D tier for Force
so
Awakens.
let me explain.
Welcome back, nerds and girls, to Nerdy Ernie or Bros Book Club. I don't know. I don't know where I'm posting this, but I'm posting this somewhere. Today we're going to be tier ranking the Disney Star Wars content, only Disney Star Wars content. So we're not going to be tier ranking the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, just the sequel trilogy and all the TV shows and standalones that Disney has produced. So let's just jump right into it. I say we start with the films.
Okay.
Right. Or actually what I did for my first tier ranking, I started, we kind of like made a spectrum, right? Like we started with an S and then we went with a D to kind of like, get the two ends of the spectrum.
Okay.
And with that in mind,
what about the things that are below D tier?
below D tier?
Yeah,
I don't
bro.
think
There's
that exists.
there's
I think you
definitely
gotta
a
put 'em
couple
in there.
below D tier
Oh, God.
already. Like, come on. Like, I'm fine with putting things in S, but like, there's a wide range of quality we're looking at.
Okay. Anything below D tier, we'll just assume we're just gonna bunch up into D tier.
Okay.
We gotta have at least a spectrum.
Okay. Fine. Valid.
All right. So an easy one. The less that is said about this movie, the better. But Rise of Skywalker, D tier. That's just an easy D tier.
We can
start.
like put the floor there.
Yes.
Easy clap. That's game over.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would argue. So Ernie, I will say that I've heard your argument for The Last Jedi.
Uh-huh.
At least it tried to go somewhere else.
Right.
Which, upon consideration, granted, putting that aside, because I want to wait to rank that one and talk about The Force Awakens.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
I would argue that it is as bad as Rise of Skywalker.
The Force Awakens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it missed on so many levels. I really question what it hit on outside of just like visuals and fan service, which honestly, I don't think it hit on fan service, but it did. I mean, everything Disney does has the glitz and glamour. If it's going to be a mainstream blockbuster movie, it's going to look amazing.
For sure.
So that's taken for granted.
For sure.
But everything else about The Force Awakens fails as a narrative. And even from a fan service side, there were things that they should have done that they just didn't do. And the example that I would give, and then I'll shut up, is, and this is from Mark Hamill. Like Mark Hamill said multiple times that he couldn't believe they didn't put a shot with Leia, Han, and Luke back in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. And then she passes away, and that opportunity is gone. They just didn't do it. They made 3 movies to continue this, and nowhere in there is just like the moment that everyone who wanted fan service wanted. Like why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll shut up.
Mikey, do you have anything to add?
I'm going to agree with Scott on this for a couple reasons. I am.
So both of you are D tier. Both of you D tier for Force Awakens.
Let me explain. So,
holy shit.
Force Awakens gets a lot of race because the context of when it came out, like how many years had passed between last Star Wars movie that we got, which I think was Revenge of the Sith, to Force Awakens. Like, so, it was a I remember going to seeing it in the theater. It was a spectacle. A lot of people were super excited. It kind of, for a while, it felt like I was a kid again going to see Star Wars for the first time. Like I did feel that. But I can't conscience say that somehow absolves this movie of just being a carbon copy of Episode 4. That's all it is. It is just a Disney-fied complete rewrite of, like, there's nothing that they do in The Force Awakens that sets any new ground. There's like arguably there's new characters, but they're just carbon copies of characters we've seen before. Maybe Finn, I guess, is kind of a new cool character, but Kylo is just the new Vader. Rey obviously is supposed to be taking on the mantle of Luke, and you have Poe as the new Han. It, I mean, look, I guess you can give it a higher ranking just because it didn't like absolutely take a crap on the franchise like the later ones do. But it honestly, it's just regurgitation, and it honestly, I give it a lot of I rank it lower because of how much it to me it felt like it just spelled the beginning of the end. It may not have been the absolute bottom of the barrel. It may not have been the stinking flaming turd that episode 9 was, but damn did it start us on that path.
Okay, so guys, I was gonna put Force Awakens in B tier, and I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna spoiler warning. I'm probably gonna meet you guys in the middle and put it in C tier.
All right.
But my reasoning for why I was initially like thinking B tier is because when I think of Force Awakens, I think a lot of like what Mikey was saying, right? Like when it was first coming out, I felt like a kid again. Like I felt like I did when the prequels were coming out, because that was kind of, that was our era of Star Wars, really. And look, when the credits rolled, I was still satisfied knowing that it was a complete rehash of episode 4. Like I knew that's what they were going for. The one word that I would describe Force Awakens is safe, right? Like they did fan service. They rehashed a formula that they know works. They did another Death Star. They set up a New Hope in Rey. They've got another Vader character in Kylo Ren. But like thinking back on the movie, like outside of The Last Jedi and outside of Rise of Skywalker, like they set up a lot of cool things, right? Like Kylo Ren was less tantrumy and a little bit more interesting of a character. He had kind of like a double agent kind of vibe. Like I thought he was going to end up being like a Snape character, in that he was like trying to infiltrate the dark side, when in reality he was like the light. And Rey,
see that. Yeah, I agree. I also kind of felt like it was maybe going that way when it was new.
And I thought that was like really interesting. I thought that would be really cool. And I really liked the mystery around Rey. Was she a Kenobi? I remember seeing those fan theories. Like, was she a nobody? And stuff like that. Like it set up a lot of interesting mysteries, which I really enjoyed about Star Wars, because Star Wars to me is at its best when it's like mystical and mysterious and wondrous and things like that. And so in my eyes, I thought they did a very safe, middle of the road B tier movie, right? Like they didn't try and do anything special, but they kind of nailed like the safest Star Wars movie that you could to kick off a new era. So that's kind of why like I would put it in B tier, but I see where you guys say it, because my entire argument is lost in the context of The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, right? Like as soon as you put those movies in, my argument's gone.
I'm willing to caveat and say that I am being a little unfair of episode 7 because of what I know comes in 8 and 9.
Right.
So, I think I'm willing to, like, if you're going to give it B, I'm willing to let it float up into C. But I do think it is haunted by what could have been, like Scott said, like just the fact that they didn't do a scene with all 3 of them. Like, I guess 4, just not having the original crew together is a huge miss. Yeah. I also think the stuff with the Knights of Ren, like, was a really intriguing idea. Like, I really thought they were going to, because something that I think makes Star Wars unique is that it's like a fantasy space opera kind of a vibe. Like, it has a lot of fantasy elements, the sword and sorcery kind of stuff. And I kind of thought the Knights of Ren, they were going to go sort of for like this sort of like culty medieval Sith kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I was actually really interested to see what they did with that, which was nothing.
Right. Exactly. That's kind of like what sucks about Force Awakens, is because like the mysteries, everything it sets up was great. And I'll this goes back to kind of like them picking JJ Abrams. JJ Abrams is great at starting things. He's not great at like finishing things. And that goes back to Lost. That kind of goes back to Star Trek and stuff like that. But yeah, like everything that they set up in the beginning, I thought was really good. It was just, it didn't go anywhere. And so with that context, Force Awakens, looking back on it, is like, the stuff you set up is cool, but like you didn't fucking do anything with it.
No, I mean, all three of the sequel trilogy are completely nonsensical. Like fundamentally, their narratives are trash. And that is what I am judging all of the content on. It's not even like, is it good Star Wars, as much as it is it a good story? Can someone who isn't a Star Wars fan watch this movie and enjoy it? You know, what are the odds of that? Because Star Wars took off because it was a thing for a mass market, and people were like, wow, like this is amazing, like so much fun, you know, it spawned this whole fan base because they were good stories.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, right, like, what's next?
So I think we should just round out the trilogy, right? Like, so Last Jedi, I'm putting behind Force Awakens, ahead of Rise of Skywalker, but is it C tier? Is it D tier? My argument is C tier because it had the balls, at least, to actually like try and do something different. Like, I like the decision to make Rey a nobody and kind of like veer the whole franchise into that new territory. Did they follow through with it? No. Did they execute it well in Last Jedi? No, in my opinion. But I felt like Last Jedi had the only gusto out of the whole trilogy, right? Like Force Awakens was super safe, and then Rise of Skywalker was just a complete retcon. So Last Jedi is like the only one where they actually like had balls to do anything. What do you guys think?
D tier. More of the same. Trash. No, it's extremely confusing as a narrative. And it's perhaps even more confusing if you are familiar with the source material. Like if you are a Star Wars fan, then you watch The Last Jedi and you're just kind of like, huh? And while, yeah, it's good for the director to be creative, it's an extended universe, bro. Like the whole point is for this to be a continuous story that references itself and makes sense. And you can like rewrite it, you know? But if your version is worse than the version before, you will be judged by it. And this version sucks.
Put it in C, honestly. I'm kind of with you, Ernie. I do like that they decided to try and move things in a new direction. Rian Johnson is the director, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Because they went with J.J. Abrams, and then it was Rian Johnson, and then it was J.J. again. I do think that he had that it was a good vision, but he had a vision, it seemed like, for where he wanted things to go. This idea that anybody can become a Jedi and use the Force was something that George Lucas originally had in his vision for how the Force works. You know, he would always say in like interviews and stuff, like the idea is that the Force is something that anybody and everybody has access to and interacts with because everybody's a part of the Force. It's just a matter of like, do you have either the raw talent or the discipline,
right,
to like manipulate the Force, right? So I do think that's kind of what, by the end, when you see with the broom scene and everything, like you're kind of seeing that, you know, and the idea of making Rey a complete nobody, like you're kind of moving in that direction. But the character assassination of Luke at this point is atrocious, just completely making him not the Luke that any of us remember. Really makes me want to put it in D tier because I can't stand by and let you massacre my boy like that. But I'm willing to give it a C for creativity. also think I think that movie specifically is where they go to Canto Bite, and there's like this whole side
Yes.
plot with Rose and
Ugh.
Finn, and I'm like, that is just
That was
so bad. Like
cringe.
it's
Pure
unnecessary.
It was
cringe.
like a whole
Yes.
hour of the movie was dedicated to that.
It
And
was
and
so bad. It was
and,
pretty
and the
much
code
unwatchable.
breaker thing. Like what the hell was that?
So I do think there was probably some interference run by the studio where they were just like where Disney was just like, no, you need more kooky aliens. Like, go take them to space Las Vegas, please. Like,
Yeah. We
it has
need more
nothing to do with the
Finn.
movie
Hey,
that we're telling.
the studio called. They said, you got to have Space Vegas. Like, they're writing the checks, bud. Space Vegas.
Yeah.
Tell you, yeah, the frozen head of Walt Disney awoke today and
He
decided that
called.
was what you were doing.
The head called.
Somehow Disney has returned.
Somehow.
Yeah. Oh God.
That is the narrative of this entire thing. The corruption of Disney.
Oh
I'm
my
gonna leave it at
god.
that. I'm gonna say C for me.
Yeah. Honestly, the less that is said about this trilogy, the better. Like this is really the worst of the Disney Star Wars content in my eyes, which is so sad because it's the mainline films, you know?
Go on.
Yeah.
We have thoughts. We have thoughts.
We'll get
All
there.
right. Let's go with, I guess chronologically how like what came out next. We could go Rogue One.
S.
Let's do Rogue One
Yeah.
because I actually have some positive things to say about Rogue One. Let's go with Rogue One next.
I think Rogue One for me is one of like my favorite Star Wars films, TV shows, like of all time. Yeah, I think they just nailed Rogue One. It was gritty. It was like very, but it was gritty, but they also kept the mystical side of the Force and things like that. And we got, we got Fan Vader, which whatever. You can criticize that scene all you want, but I don't give a shit. Like we needed to see Darth Vader
That
do
scene was
some
awesome.
badass shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That just like, I think they nailed Rogue One. I loved it start to finish.
Some things that you can play devil's advocate for on that film, but it was great. Like that was a standalone film. Like you could watch that movie and be like a James Bond fan or something and not know anything about Star Wars and watch Rogue One and enjoy yourself.
Yes. And rewatch it. I've rewatched it like 3 times now and I'm like, God, this movie, it's just great. Every time I watch it, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Honestly, I don't really know where all the criticism comes from. I haven't really done a whole deep dive into what all the reviews say because I know it isn't the most highly rated Star Wars movie. I know it's not like panned as awful, but it seems like a lot of people see it as middle of the road. But I really like this movie, and I think this movie I'm gonna probably say this a lot. I think this kind of kicks off like my whole thing of like Star Wars to me is it's a setting. It's a kind of it's a environment in which to tell good stories.
A sandbox.
And like, yeah, it's a sandbox, right? So you tell different genre stories within Star Wars. So when you're telling like the original trilogy, I mean, it's the classic like fantasy, like the reluctant hero, takes up the magic sword and fights the Dark Lord, right? That's the classic quintessential like fantasy, epic hero fantasy. Rogue One is kind of like that quintessential spy thriller, right? That heist movie. Like I think there are just really compelling stories of other kinds of like taking inspiration from other genres that you can do within Star Wars and make something that is like really, really good. And I think for me, Rogue One, I maybe wouldn't put it in S, but to me, it's pretty close. I don't know. I'd be okay with putting it in A as well, if not S. But
Fringe S.
Probably one of my SA, some sort of hybrid spot in there.
Okay.
I think one of my favorite characters in that is the I forget his name, the blind monk that constantly says, "I'm one with the Force, the Force is with me."
Yes,
that is so cool. Like that's something that I've been telling my friends for a while. Like, how come we don't like? Because Star Wars, George Lucas made Star Wars with a lot of like samurai films, like as inspiration, right? A lot of with the whole thing with how the fight styles go, it's very samurai-esque. But I've been saying to my friends for a long time,
is very samurai influenced.
but like his like the blind monk thing, like this martial artist, like using the force to see. That is so cool. Why have we not seen that in live action before now? Like that is
Yep.
such a cool idea. I love it.
Yeah. And the way he goes out too, like
Mm-hmm.
when he crosses the field and the stormtroopers are firing at him and he's just reciting the prayer over and over again. I'm just like, this is amazing. Yeah. That's like
Uh,
that's Star Wars for me.
Mm-hmm.
one last thing I want to say. So the scene where they're actually where like it's the assault on the base and you're actually like seeing the troops on the ground, like the movie overall is pretty much like a spy heist kind of movie. But in like moments like that with like the scene of the beach, it kind of gives me like a war, like an actual war movie
Yes.
type feeling.
Yes.
Like you're in World War II, but in space. Like
Yep.
for a franchise that's called Star Wars, like that felt like such a real gritty look at like stormtroopers and like the rebels. Like I love that.
Yeah. And another thing is like by the time you get to those scenes, you understand fully the stakes at hand and like the desperation of everyone, like the boots on the ground and stuff like that. And like
Mm-hmm.
the rebellion, like not wanting to use resources to help them out, but then they come anyway and they bring the cavalry. Like everything is just cranked to 11 by the time you reach that crescendo towards the end. And yeah, man, they just fucking nailed it. They nailed Rogue One.
You know what? Fuck it, Ernie. I changed my mind. Fully S. Don't even. I'm not even gonna let myself ride the
We're not
train on
Deserves
this
messing
one.
it.
around.
Fully S.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
deserves it. Of
Yeah.
any movie on this list deserves it.
Rogue One is S1.
Tough to beat. It is tough to beat.
All right, let's go. I guess the next film, and we can just be done with the films after this one. Yeah.
Okay.
So the next one let's do Solo.
Mhm.
Dude, Solo, I think suffered from Star Wars fatigue when it came out, and it got a
Agreed.
lot of flack. I don't think a lot of people have watched Solo. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but for me, I'm like in between A and B with Solo. I really enjoyed it. I liked the kid who played Han Solo. I loved fucking young Chewbacca. Um, and then what else? Just the world building, like how they were brushing up against like other gangs and other groups within Star Wars that aren't just like the Empire and like the rebels and things like that. Like we were dealing with like like actual smugglers and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I'm kind of between A and B right now. What do you guys think?
What do you
Go
think?
ahead, Scott.
B. It's a forgettable like action movie. It's fine. It's not not super memorable. And it does suffer from Star Wars fatigue. And I didn't watch it when it came out. By that point in
Mm,
time, I was completely tapped out
yeah,
from all the franchise. I watched it for this discussion like last week.
nice.
And
So I'm gonna say that Solo is what you were saying. A New Hope or not New Hope. Force Awakens is. It felt like a very safe.
Mm,
I say safe, but just in the formulaic, just action movie genre of just like turn your brain off and watch the pretty colors kind of a thing. Like you're not
yeah,
really super concerned with the plot. You're just kind of here for the ride. You're right. It does suffer from like Star Wars fatigue, so it's not as bad as a lot of people made it out to be when it came out. Like it's perfectly serviceable. I would probably say it's a B movie. Um,
okay.
you run the risk with a lot of these origin movies, like we've seen in the past, like what happened with like that Wolverine movie. Like when you try to do an
Oh
origin
yeah,
story for a really, really popular fan favorite, if you don't absolutely nail it, you run the risk of like diminishing the value of everyone's favorite character. And when
yeah,
you do that, you will get backlash for it. And again, movie that is not bad by any means. I think there are a lot of really, really good performances in that movie. I thought Donald Glover did an amazing job. I thought Woody
yes,
Harrelson was great. I think
yes,
Paul Bettany is incredible. I think there's some really, really solid standout performances in that movie. Again, but with a mediocre plot, and you're giving insight into this really enigmatic character that a lot of people like have love for in Han Solo. Like, you want to know how he did the Kessel Run. Like, you want to know all these things, but that's the thing. Do you actually want to know, or do you just like the fantasy, like what you made up in your head? What you see, if it's not absolutely incredible, you're gonna hate it a lot. So a lot of people hated it for that because they felt like it ruined Solo for them. I don't think that it did, but yeah, that's the risk you run.
That is a good point because like part of Han Solo's, it's like specifically Harrison Ford's Han Solo portrayal is he has kind of like this mystique to him, right? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
kind of mysterious. He puts off an aura that he's a badass, and he says a lot of badass things. And so you kind of fill in the gaps with your imagination, like, oh shit, this guy's, he's done a lot of stuff in the Star Wars galaxies, and he's done a lot of wars and stars.
Right.
So and then like you making that stuff explicit, like Mikey said, like you've got to nail that and actually back up that he's a badass and stuff like that. And yeah, the movie did just kind of make him like goofy. Like he is, he's goofy in the original trilogy,
Yeah, he
but
is.
like you believe that he's a badass, down to his core. So
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
he's the stereotype. I mean, I don't mean not stereotypical, but he's probably the archetypal like swashbuckling rogue,
yeah,
type character. He's not like your Clint Eastwood like cowboy necessarily. He has a little bit of that swagger to him, but yeah, he's your fast talking like uh pretty boy, like this dashing bad guy, like the bad boy that you can love, right? And a
mm-hmm.
lot of people really resonate with Harrison Ford's portrayal of him. And I think I don't even remember the guy's name. I don't think he does a bad job. I do think he does a really good job like mirroring those mannerisms that Harrison Ford brought to the role. And I think he does just fine. But yeah, you run the risk of turning a lot of people off when you don't absolutely nail that.
Agreed.
Maybe it's for the best that the movie didn't do very well because while this movie was fine, I'm pretty sure that a sequel would have been absolutely terrible for these
Amen.
reasons.
Yes,
That's true.
100%.
I forgot about that. They were trying to set it up as like its own trilogy.
Oh, that's
Right.
what they do, brother. That's the Disney machine. Because like, so Solo is like borderline content. Like you're right, it's got great performances. There is like a spirit to it. It's not got great writing. It's not got a lot of like. I feel like they could have put a lot more thought into like telling that story, but it's not so bad. It's just content, just
Right.
schlock. But Solo 2 would have been content. Almost.
Yeah.
I do want to say one more thing, and like it's a shame because I don't necessarily think the inclusion of Darth Maul, like that little cameo. Spoilers, by the way, the cameo at the end with Darth Maul showing up, like that was just really poor timing because that came out after we had already seen what happens to Maul in some of the stuff we'll probably talk about later
Yeah.
when the shows. So like they really
I
wanted to
missed
set
that
this up
cameo.
as like that. I think that was where the like was going to go, was going to be like in this gritty, dark underworld, like crime syndicate run by Darth Maul. And I don't necessarily think that would have been bad, but knowing what we already know, like how his story ends, it just falls on deaf ears at that point. Kind of a waste of
Yeah.
time.
It does. There is a weird disconnect between live action Maul and animated Maul, especially with Solo. Like that really muddied the waters.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's almost, yeah, it's I think it's a good thing we didn't end up getting the sequels for Solo because that might have even muddied the waters even further regarding Maul. So on Maul, why don't we do let's do Clone Wars next.
So,
Okay.
preface, I have only watched like the first 2 seasons of the original Clone Wars. I haven't watched this whole show.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so I haven't watched every single episode of Clone Wars. I have watched like a vast majority of it. And I've watched all of the final seasons. So I've watched, I don't know if Disney did 1 whole season or 2 whole seasons, but I know they did like the end. And I watched all of the end. So for me, the show ranges from S tier all the way down to like C tier. Some episodes are just like, okay, yeah,
Well,
just
it's a children's
content.
show, so like
Yeah,
variance
yeah.
is totally acceptable, I think.
It reminds me a lot of Dragon Ball Z. Like there's a
Mhm.
lot of amazing episodes, and then there's a
Mhm.
lot of filler.
Yeah, sure.
But
For
Clone
sure.
Wars in particular has a weird structure to it in that like you get like mini arcs, and sometimes they're scattered. Like sometimes an arc won't finish. Like you'll start it in season 1, and then you'll watch a bunch of episodes that are unrelated to that arc, and then you'll pick it up in season 2, and then it'll finish in like season 4. So yeah, so because of that, I'm like between A and B, and if it is B, it's ahead of Solo for me. It's like a high B for me.
Mhm.
If my ranking can get it bumped from B into A, because like I would give it an S. So
Really? Okay.
if my S ranking would get it into A, like I'll absolutely I'm gonna campaign for that. If
Okay.
you are a Star Wars fan, so again, I'm with you guys. There are some variants in quality of episodes. It is a kids show first and foremost, but um, some of the like most meaningful Star Wars things that I've ever seen have
Yes.
happened in Clone
Yes.
Wars. So the
Yes.
introduction of like Cad Bane, Ahsoka, like two like just truly incredible characters that only existed for this show, and like probably still are my favorite Star Wars. Some of my favorite Star Wars characters, right? And then like the relationship, like actually getting to see that relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan because of
Yeah.
the Clone Wars, it's absolutely incredible.
And Anakin
Those
being a
later seasons,
badass and not
yeah,
like toward, Obi-Wan or something like that. Like
I
him, being the chosen one.
yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think because there's what 9 seasons, right?
He's
I
something like
believe
that.
because I
7,
think what
something like
happened
that.
was like season 6. I could be completely wrong, and that's okay. But I think it's season 6 where that was the last season they did before Disney bought
Hmm.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
And all of those seasons had direct input from George Lucas. Like George Lucas was actually involved in the show. So it was written in a way that was sort of towards like what his vision was for his franchise, right? And
Hmm.
then when Disney bought it, they took a big break and they didn't do it for a while. And then so those last 3 seasons, when they picked it back up, I think that's some of the best stuff that Disney has done for Star Wars, right? So you get to see the Siege of Mandalore, and
Yes.
how Darth Maul takes over Mandalore. You get to see Ahsoka. Like, there's like this really, really powerful moment where, because like you kind of get left where Ahsoka leaves the Order. She turns her back on it all, and like she still cares for Anakin, but like they kind of go their separate ways. And then there's this season, I think it's 7, where they're doing the Siege of Mandalore, and you get this moment, and it's the moment right before they go on to where Anakin and Obi-Wan go on to Count Dooku's ship, right? And Anakin head off, right? In attack or sorry, Revenge of the Sith, right? So it's like, so there's this moment in the show where it kind of overlaps in the canon, and you actually get to see a moment with Anakin and Ahsoka, and like that to me is just so cool. Like getting to see how the story weaves into the prequels and how the relationship, even though you obviously don't see it in the live action movies, like Ahsoka's presence somehow like is now felt because of like those moments. So to me, that show definitely should go in S tier, but I think A is perfectly fine for the Clone Wars.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I
willing
agree
I'm
with
willing to bump
A.
it into A.
It's good.
Uh
It's great.
yeah, for me, S
It sounds
tier
like there's
just
stuff that I would like to check out, like I haven't finished the show,
Definitely.
but like what I have seen, I enjoyed, and I agree there was some variance, but that's to be expected for the type of show that it is. So
Oh, one more thing, Scott. One more thing, Scott. So Clone Wars actually dives into the mythology of Star Wars, probably more than maybe Rebels. We'll talk about that. Probably
yeah.
dives into the mythology of like the Force and everything, almost as much, but not quite. But Clone Wars really dives into Mortis and like the father, the son, and
I
the
saw that
daughter.
part. That part
Yeah,
was really, really, really interesting.
yeah. And that's part of it too, right? Star Wars is more than just a sci-fi. It is a fantasy. Like there's gods in the universe. Like there's mystical powers. Like Ernie, you've been saying it. Like Star Wars is at its best when it like showcases the mystical side. And
Yeah.
the Clone Wars really actually dives into that stuff. Like you see the Night Sisters and the night magic. Like all that stuff comes from Clone Wars.
Yeah, and I really like the point that you made, Mikey, and that like there some of the best moments of Star Wars are in the Clone Wars series. Like for me, Ahsoka's Order 66 experience, bro,
Yes.
like chills down my spine. Like that is like top 5 Star Wars episode, moment, scene, whatever you want to call it, in all of Star Wars for me. Like that, like I was like just so just shook by that whole Order 66 experience from Rex and Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Folks,
good. But
do yourself a favor, watch Clone Wars. I know it's a lot. Watch it all. It's good.
yes. What got me to really like ramp up, because I had watched it sporadically and then I kind of gave up after like season 4, season 5. But with the new live action Ahsoka, I was like, all right, I just got to do it. Like I got to watch them. On Disney Plus, they have what's called the Essentials episodes. And it's basically like everything that Disney thinks you need to know to watch the live action series. But realistically, all it's going to do, and this is what happened to me, you start watching the Essentials episodes and then you start getting into season 6 and season 7 and stuff like that. And you're like, wait a minute. They start referencing like Mandalore and stuff like that. So you're like, oh my God, hold on. I got to go back and I got to watch all the Mandalore episodes from season 4. And then they reference like other stuff. And you're like, holy crap, hold on. I got to go back. And so I did the Essentials, but then I ended up just like watching everything. But yeah, highly recommend. For me, my one argument, I wanted to say this, my one argument for it not being S tier is I feel like S tier, the quality has to be like averaging great, right? And for me, like it has those elite amazing moments, but like sometimes there's like a lot of filler for me, and so it averages more so on just like the right outside of S for me. So that's just my reasoning for keeping it outside of there. But let's just do Rebels next, because I feel like that's a nice segue. Rebels for me was not as good as Clone Wars, but really good. I like that we followed like a completely different squad. Like the timeline in Rebels was really cool. Like the Inquisitor era, like with the Jedi on the run, that whole era is just like amazing. I love that era of Star Wars. And yeah, like the relationship between Kanan and Ezra, and then you get some Ahsoka badassness in this show. Like this show was just like a great, I didn't think it was going to be a great follow-up to Clone Wars. I wasn't all that interested in it, but I watched it, a lot of it, leading up to Ahsoka, and I was like, damn, Rebels is actually really great. So I'm going to slot it in right behind Clone Wars.
Yeah, I abstain. I have not watched this one at all.
Okay.
No, I'm gonna put it right where you have it, Ernie. I think that's a perfect spot for it. I think Rebels is not as good as Clone Wars. It's also, written for kids. It's a kid show.
Right.
But I mean, it has some very like same with Clone Wars too in the later stuff. There are stuff that is sort of like more for a mature audience, right? There's some themes in there that, adults can appreciate as well. I think Rebels, we were talking about what the frustrations were with episode 7 of like things that you just like you could have done that you didn't deliver on.
Yeah.
And like for a Star Wars fan, if you've watched all the other things and then you watched Rebels, it's like it actually does that. Like it gives you the things that you were like hoping they would do. Like you get to see the reunion of Ahsoka versus Darth Vader. Like
Yes.
they actually
Yeah.
did, instead of like doing the cop out route of like, oh, like they just never cross paths. No, you have a straight up battle between Ahsoka and Vader, right? You see that. You get to see I'm
Maul
trying to
and
remember like
Kenobi.
yeah, exactly. Maul and Kenobi, thank you. That's why I don't know why I was blanking on his name. Yeah. The Maul and Kenobi reunion, like seeing
Yeah.
how that resolves, like that you actually get to see it. There's this stuff with I love the relationship between Ezra and Kanan.
Yeah.
and you get to see stuff with the Bindu, who is like this balance of the Force. I thought that was incredible. It's where like we might talk about it a little bit with Ahsoka, but the introduction of the world between worlds
Yes.
is introduced in this. There's stuff with the Emperor that we get to see, like the Inquisitor, like that whole I don't know what you call it, like the hunting of Jedi era. That is, it's absolutely incredible. I love it.
Sweet. Okay. I just realized.
There's no Ahsoka.
Yeah, hold on. I prepared for this. No one panic.
Currently panicking.
Bam.
There it is.
All right.
Wow,
no one
dude.
panic.
You really excluded Ahsoka? You want to tell me why you did that?
This was a preset template. Okay. But I was prepared.
Dude. Wow.
Whoever made this template, you got to take it up with them.
23 and you're going to exclude Ahsoka. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. That was, yeah. Anyway, let's stay on the animateds and let's go Visions next.
That's
I'm
like
gonna put
Scott, anime.
Have you seen this?
Right?
Scott, did you watch this?
Yeah,
yeah,
this is
it's the animated short films.
Yeah.
For me, kind of same thing as Clone Wars. Like the range is pretty good. Like some of them are like A tier, borderline S tier for me, but then some of them are just like, oh god, like D tier kind of stuff. So I'm putting it right smack dab in the middle, behind Solo for me, and I'm putting it in B.
Honestly, forgettable.
Yeah,
I'd
like, say so.
It's forgettable for Star Wars, and it's also forgettable for anime.
Okay.
I think honestly, the only episode of that I truly remember and like truly sticks with me is like that very first one, like the Ronin style film with the black and white.
That's the only. Yeah, that's the only one I can even like call to mind.
Yeah,
I remember.
There's another one. There's another one later on that's like kind of Ghibli animated, and it has to do with a master and apprentice. That one was really good. I really like that one.
I guess I also remember there being one that was like they're a rock band or something, and like they go perform at Jabba's palace. That one was bad.
That was just
that didn't land.
Yeah,
no.
Oh man,
they tried.
Funny enough,
they really went outside the box for that one.
Yeah,
which is fine, but forgettable.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny about that is this is really just for you guys because no one else would know this. But so we've been doing, or we have done that D&D Star Wars thing in the past. It's kind of an off and on campaign that we've done. Looking up inspiration for what I thought would be fun to do with Jabba the Hutt. And I watched that episode thinking that maybe I could like find something funny and fun in that.
No,
it does not land.
What was that? What were they trying to do there? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So on that theme, I think Tales of the Jedi is like Visions, but a better version of it. Like it's a little bit more consistent for me. They keep the art style the same. And for me, just the stories, like specifically the Ahsoka Tales of the Jedi and like the Mace Windu Tales of the Jedi, like there's some good episodes in here. So I'm slotting it in.
Seen that one. Is it on Mark? Is it aimed at adults, children, both?
Basically the Clone Wars audience. So kind of like everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't watched it at all. Haven't really felt compelled to.
Yeah, if you do watch the rest of Clone Wars, I highly recommend. There's 2 episodes in Tales of the Jedi that center on adult Ahsoka, or not adult Ahsoka, but because I guess she's like really young in the Clone Wars, but like older Ahsoka. There's a 3rd episode on Ahsoka, but she's like literally a baby in that episode. But the 2 episodes that I'm referencing when she's older are just like further contextualize her Order 66 experience. And oh my God, it just makes it hit so much harder.
Yeah, I actually really like those episodes. Like those episodes specifically with her like escaping Coruscant.
Yes.
Um, and then the episode, and I don't remember all the details of this episode, but I do remember they basically were showcasing how Emperor Palpatine had like basically pulled one over on the Jedi.
Yep.
Do you remember that episode at all, Ernie?
Yeah, vaguely. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Because I think they showcased like Dooku while he was being
Yep.
while he was the apprentice of Yoda.
Yep.
We get to see what happened to Yaddle. So if you guys don't remember, Yaddle was the female Yoda that appeared in Phantom Menace and then was never seen again.
She gone.
And she got off. So that kind of answered a fan speculation of what happened to Yaddle because she
Yeah.
was just missing from the following movies.
Right.
So yeah, I think those Visions is pretty good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tales of the Jedi, not Visions. Tales of the Jedi is pretty good.
Yeah. I liked it. I'm slotting it in. I'll probably even put it ahead of Solo. We'll put it
All
at
right.
top
Yeah.
of
So
B tier.
I propose that part of this tier ranking, for the sake of people who haven't watched all these shows, I'm sure many people have not watched all of
Right.
these.
Right.
You know, like in my case, I've probably watched about half of this list. When we're going through and like ranking stuff, like where would you tell people to watch, like to prioritize watching? Because it's a lot of time
Ooh.
to invest,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
You're like, let's not assume that everyone watches everything. I think that's not a reasonable assumption for most
Right.
people. So, like, if you just like love good storytelling, you still start, you know, like, how would you structure that? But anyway,
Right. Okay, so order it in terms of like if you haven't watched it, what would you recommend first? And in this case, since I'm obviously recommending Clone Wars and Rebels before any of B tier, I would recommend Tales of the Jedi before I recommend Solo because Tales of the Jedi like really kind of reinforces Clone Wars a lot. They're
cool.
pretty synergistic.
Yeah, I mean, hot take, but probably would and that you just watch those three like before anything else.
Mm,
Maybe obviously Rogue One. If you haven't seen that, watch Rogue One. But like if you're
yeah.
looking for like the definitive like canon of like what's going on around the Clone Wars era, like if that's something that feels like you would invest that amount of time in, Clone Wars for sure, Tales of the Jedi, and Rebels, I think will give you a really, really solid like lead up to the original trilogy.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, moving on. Mikey, I'm gonna have to lean on you for this one because I have not watched Bad Batch.
Ooh, you haven't watched Bad Batch.
No. Oh, you've watched
Oh
Bad
yeah,
Batch, Scott?
I'm caught
Okay,
up on
sweet.
Bad Batch.
So
Yeah.
both of you can contribute to this one. I'm gonna just totally let you guys decide where this one's gonna go.
Um,
Scott, you go first. Yeah.
um, I think that just off the cuff, I would just put it in A.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it is another children's or young adult kind of oriented show. So like yeah, like a Dragon Ball Z kind of comparison or anime comparison where there's like going to be varying levels of like quality, and there's not necessarily going to be like a ton of nuance in the storytelling and stuff, but it does have some character development that happens. It's a narrative that I feel like is consistent. It is also a cool perspective, you know, of these like elite commandos that literally go rogue against the Empire, except they're split. So yeah, it's super enjoyable. I would say it's definitely above content, and I like it.
Yeah, I'd probably put it in either very bottom of A or very top of B tier. So I'm okay with it being an A. Yeah, I mean, if you like, look, if you want something that's just kind of family friendly, has a lot of fun little like episode of the week kind of stuff, where it's just like very self contained story. It has an overarching story, and there's character development, but a lot of the mission, it's like they do this mission, then they go here and do this mission. It's very episodic in that way. It's very good for like if you have kids. Like it's a fun. I had a good time watching it. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love like super commando mutants going rogue against the Empire? Like that's fun. That's a great
Yeah.
premise.
Yeah. And I feel
So,
like that's very Star Wars, you know?
and question for you guys. So timeline wise, because they covered the Bad Batch in the Clone Wars show, but it was like before Order 66. Like some of them started, I forgot what they call it, but some of them started having like dreams and like hallucinations of like basically Order 66. And so they started, kind of like losing their minds. Where does the show Bad Batch take place?
It starts at Order 66, basically.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
So Bad Batch is actually like they're introduced, like their squad is introduced in Clone Wars. Like you meet them
Right.
in Clone Wars, but then they get their own spin-off show and it takes place, yeah, after Order 66. Because it's basically like
Interesting. Okay.
the premise is like, what happened to them and why didn't they participate in Order 66?
Holy shit. So they're technically part of like the Inquisitor era.
Yeah, it takes place kind of in that. I think it's before Rebels for sure,
Yeah,
Right.
but
it
it's
has
like
to be.
I think it kind
Yeah.
of leads into Rebels.
Wow. Sick. Okay. All right. I might check that out.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Okay. Next, let's do Mando. Boys,
Gotta do Mando, dude.
Mando's S tier for me. Behind
S
Rogue
tier.
One. But S tier just like solid. Even with this
Yeah.
last
Actually,
season, which was a little like slower, a little off topic. Not off topic, but just like off Mando, I guess. But yeah, I for me, Mandalorian kind of saved Star Wars, dude. Like I had like major fatigue after the trilogy, and then like even with Solo, like I enjoyed Solo, but at the same time I was like, what are we doing here, guys? It's just
Yeah,
content,
meh.
like I miss Star Wars like being like serious and like something that I was really excited for, and I just like the hype died for me, and then Mando like boom rekindled that for me. So yeah, Mandalorian for me just like S tier, no doubt.
Yeah.
I was almost debating whether or not like if we could do like the different seasons of the Mandalorian because each season gets a different tier for me. Because
Interesting. Okay.
season one is certified S tier, no questions, no further questions at this time. Like we're fully sending it S tier. Season two, I thought was very good. It was a great follow up. It wasn't as good as season one. I think it falls into A tier. But then season three is an absolute dog poop of a season. I think it falls. I think it falls into C tier.
So that's what Disney does.
Yes.
That is the Disney formula, is they consume a story that is not their own, they digest it and slowly shit it out. Throughout the entire history of this company, they'll put forward this gem and usher a franchise into cultural dominance and then just pump shit out. And so I also agree with Mandalorian being an S tier. I've only seen the first season. I'm not.
Oh, yeah. So for you, it's just total S tier no matter what.
Loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Totally brought some of that joy, that excitement back.
Yeah.
From the storytelling. Boba Fett was always my favorite character. So when The Mandalorian came out, I was so excited. I was nervous about how they were going to do Mandalorian culture because I have been a fan for a long time. And I read a whole bunch of books in the extended universe and stuff way before Disney came into the picture and went really deep into the Mandalorian world building and storytelling and stuff. So I was like, going to judge it harshly, but I enjoyed every second of it. I will watch the rest of it, even though what you're saying doesn't surprise me because that's what they do. They just drag, sometimes the story just needs to be told,
Yeah.
but if you keep pumping out content to make money off of it, you ruin the story. So, I don't know. I'll put it in S. But
I want to put it in S. If I'm just going to talk about the first season, because I think that's what we all talk about the Mandalorian. That's the first thing that comes to our mind is that first season. Like, where were you when you watched season 1 of the Mandalorian? Because like
Right.
I had given up on Star Wars. Like I've been a diehard Star Wars fan all my life. I like Scott. I read the books. Like I was the nerd who was reading all the extended
Heir to the
universe novels,
Empire, all
Heir to
that
yeah.
the
shit.
Empire with Thrawn and everything. Like, dude, I
Mhm.
was fucking in that universe. Like I loved everything about it. And then, as Disney do, they ruined it for me. They squashed it. And then when this came out, it brought that back. Like what I thought episode 7 was going to give me when I went into the theater for the first time. Like I felt it for a moment. I kind of felt that giddiness again. It didn't last long, but I felt it a little bit. Mandalorian absolutely gave me that like giddy feeling. But like for a character that's completely different, there's no Jedi. It's just like a silent protagonist, like this Clint Eastwood, like cowboy bounty hunter. That's that that is probably the single most defining character of Star Wars in the modern era is Din.
Yep. Yep. Totally agree. And for me personally, I am a huge fan of season 2 as well. I know, Mikey, you said you would probably rank it A tier, but for me, season 1 and 2 just tell like a really complete story for me. And I kind of lump them together at this point. And collectively, for me, like they're S tier. And with the cameo at the end of season 2, like the way it ends was just, I thought it was awesome. I loved seasons 1 and 2. Like you said, season 3, hit a little bump in the road. I get it. Not every show is going to be perfect all throughout, but like, yeah, if I'm recommending, like, if just based off our structure, like if I'm recommending anything, fucking Rogue One and Mando off the top, like you got to watch those no
Yeah.
matter what.
If you like action movies or sci-fi, then you'll probably enjoy those.
Yeah.
Yeah, back to the theme that I was saying of like Star Wars is at its best when it is like the set piece for a larger narrative, like in this case, a spaghetti western, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
there are a few things that just go hand in hand, like westerns and Star Wars, or like in my opinion, like spy thrillers in Star Wars. Like that's just one of those things. It's just like it's money, like it's
Yep.
absolute gold.
Yeah.
So yeah, would highly recommend. And yeah, the end of season 2 is like a really really good way to round out that narrative. Like the sacrifice that he makes for Grogu at the end of season 2. That is a really 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 good way to cap off that story arc.
Yes.
It's a real
Yes.
shame that season 3 did not follow that up.
Right. Right. Okay. Moving on, I think next this is kind of a good segue into Boba Fett, because he is introduced through Mandalorian, and they kind of weave together. I shouldn't say introduced. Sorry, no, he's not introduced.
And you
He's like
also shouldn't say good.
reintroduced.
You also shouldn't say good in Book of Boba Fett in the same sentence either.
So look, okay,
Okay.
look, this show outside of one episode is completely unoffensive C tier for me. But that one episode, the Mando episode, kind of like that one episode for me was like A tier, borderline S tier. That fucking episode was amazing. And so for me, it brings him from like bottom of C tier to like top of C tier.
Okay, I haven't watched this show at all.
Don't.
If you're a fan, you said you're a fan of Boba Fett.
My favorite character from
Don't do that to your character.
That's
don't
why I
lose
haven't
what you
watched
love.
it, because I've heard too much and I'm like, you know what? I really distrust Disney to do anything good with characters I like. So I haven't watched it.
Yeah. Okay. So look, when you watch Mando season 2, watch that and then watch the one Mando episode that's in Boba Fett, because they literally, there's an entire Mandalorian episode in the Boba Fett season. that like literally just belongs to be in the Mandalorian, but they just put it in Boba Fett. Highly recommend that episode. That episode is awesome.
It is a
But
good
everything
episode,
outside of that.
All right, well, maybe we'll come back to this when we have time, but I'd love to unpack what the fuck happened on multiple like shows / movies. I haven't watched this one, so I'm super curious. Like, how did they completely mess this up? This is an amazing character with tons of good stuff to work with, but I have the same question about some other shows that we haven't talked about. So,
Scott, let me ask you a question. Let me just ask you a quick question, Scott. When you think about your favorite characters, do you like to watch them be emasculated?
No.
No? No? Interesting. Well, because whoever decided that they were going to create the Book of Boba Fett seems to think that's what we wanted to see.
Wow. No.
I have strong opinions about the Book of Boba Fett. It really, really upset me how, like, because he was one of my favorite characters too. Like, he's one of the coolest enigmatic parts of the original trilogy. Like, who the hell is this cool bounty hunter guy?
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, they just completely took a crap on him.
Well, we have Star Wars fatigue for a reason.
Yep.
So speaking of characters and concepts that we're just going to take a crap on.
Oh man! Oh my god! Okay, wait. Let me preface this one and Ahsoka. I didn't have time to watch all the way through, so I watched the first episode for both. So I'm going to rank Obi-Wan and Ahsoka off of just the first episode, which is not fair.
Oh,
but
you didn't
man,
watch
I
all
have
of
strong
Kenobi?
opinions. I'll tell you that.
Oh shit! Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. All right. Yeah. Okay, so look, I just want to say, as a concept, this had the potential to be here.
It looks like it should be. Just if you looked at it and thought about
it. This is the one fucking Star Wars story that you needed to nail. Like, this needed to be here.
Yeah.
Bro, how are you going to bring back Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen and not deliver a certified absolute S-tier banger? How do you do that?
And that is why, look,
beg the question. Yeah.
Realistically, this is like taking my emotions out of it. It's forgettable, good action B tier, but because I'm so offended by the flop of this, it's like bottom of C tier, borderline D.
No, dude, it's D tier. Like,
it's D tier for sure.
It's D tier. Look,
all right. Okay, but ahead of Rise of Skywalker. Ready?
Okay, so you guys remember The Lion King? Yeah,
yeah.
Like, that was like peak our childhood in the 90s. Do you remember Lion King 1.5?
No, what? That was a thing.
Actually, yeah, I do remember Lion King 1.5.
Yeah. Okay, so Ernie, Lion King 1.5 is like a straight to DVD. I'm pretty sure it's straight to DVD. Oh god, I hope so. But and I loved it when I was a kid. Like, I thought it was hilarious. I was so entertained by this when I was a kid, in elementary school. It's basically Mystery Science Theater 3000 with Timon and Pumbaa watching The Lion King. And
what?
Yeah, seriously. And they literally just take the movie, The Lion King, and they play clips of it, and then they just do like little commentary and have like little like additional content or whatever. But it's lazy as hell. Terrible. Just pure schlock. Just raking it in from a captive audience. Like, let's be as lazy as possible. And that is what Obi-Wan is.
Yeah.
It is the laziest possible way they could have told that story, which, as we have all already stated, is mind-blowing.
Yep.
Why? Why did you just make us rewatch clips from the prequel movies? And it's like, oh, like Obi-Wan's dream. It's Star Wars Episode 2.
Yeah.
That's so lame. Like, no new insight, nothing, it's just, and like, you want to talk about emasculating the main character. Okay, but even worse, like, it doesn't even make sense as a narrative. Like, there's so many contradictions in tone And keep in mind, I'm only talking about the first episode.
Yeah.
But who is this for? Like, it goes from really dark, like it's trying to go into like this gritty, like Order 66 flashback stuff, into like, I just can only imagine that somebody at the studio is like, we need baby Princess Leia to be a hero for the little children. So you have this like whole like Princess Leia sequence where she's like a 4-year-old and evading her captors, you know, like these grown ass adults.
You're right. Right.
It's like, what is happening? Is it who
Yeah.
like, because I don't think that like all of that is like for young children, but at the same time, it's like they had to put some, which they did with Baby Yoda, and like they treaded that line right with like, well, it has to be something for the children too, you know, because this is Disney. Okay, fine, like Baby Yoda, but making Princess Leia the like tiny little 4-year-old adult Baby Yoda was horrible for storytelling. Like, it made no sense. It made the tone like difficult to like
Yeah.
follow. It's so bad. It's so bad. Why is it so bad? Who's that?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to go on my rant.
Okay.
I feel like we all need to go on a rant about this show, but okay. One thing I want to say up front, and I hate that this has to be like a thing now, but this is just the world we're in now. I feel like a lot of the flack that Star Wars gets, and like there is a vocal minority that just like screams, "Oh my God, you're inserting feminism and you're trying to," like, there were like obviously racist people out there who hated Kenobi because of Moses Ingram, the actress who portrayed I don't even remember her name. Her character is that forgettable. I just want to say up front,
Reva.
like Reva, yes,
The
Reva.
Inquisitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inquisitor Reva. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
gotcha.
and look, like, to be honest, I do not have a problem with her character. I actually thought that was like a cool concept. Like a kid who was one of the younglings at Order 66, who is kind of pulling what I thought they were doing with Kylo Ren, and that she was infiltrating the dark side and she just wants to get revenge on Vader, who was Anakin, who killed all those younglings. Like, holy shit. That is a really fucking cool little subplot. Did it need to be in Kenobi? In my opinion, no. That's kind of, it sounds like it should be its own thing or part of some other show, just like not Kenobi. Because for me, they like the real criticism that I want to get to, like I hated Reva's character, but I don't want this to be like, oh my God, you hate women and you hate women in lead roles and stuff like that. Like that's not what I'm trying to get at. It's like, I feel like they had potential with her character, but the execution and the writing of her character just like A, did not need to be in this show, and B, was just executed poorly, right? Like they made her to be another Kylo Ren character where she just threw tantrums, and like she wasn't very convincing to me as a character who was like a very patient and, like almost diabolically so patient person who was looking to get revenge on Vader. She was almost like haywire and off the cuff, which is not someone who would like wait that long and be that conniving to infiltrate the Inquisitors and like, risk everything to get that close to getting to Vader and eventually trying to kill him, right? Like, anyway, that's just like one aspect of my criticism regarding Kenobi. And then the other part of it is that like, you made a show about Kenobi and like 2/3 of the time you're spending on baby Princess Leia and like Inquisitor Reva. Like, what are we doing here, guys?
So
what the fuck are we doing here? And hold on, Mikey, one last thing.
Okay.
My one last thing that just like, this sets me over the edge, because one thing that I think is sacred about Star Wars, and that like to this day, to the day I die, the thing that I like probably love most about Star Wars is like the dueling, right? And everything that surrounds duels within Star Wars, the 1v1s. And for some fucking reason in Kenobi, they made the lightsabers like baseball bats. Did you guys notice that? like they had like a weird different weight to how they fought with lightsabers. And Scott, you might not have seen this because like you only watched episode 1, but like when they duel, it's not like the quick, fast pace that you saw in the prequels or even the original trilogy. Like the lightsabers like feel different and like heavy and like not like an actual lightsaber duel. I was like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like literally everything is off about this show. And anyway, okay, I'm done. Mikey, I'm gonna let you go now.
Well, Ernie, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that, about the lightsabers having a weird weight to them. Because actually I didn't hate the final duel. Like it wasn't as incredible. It was nowhere near the level of what the end of Sith was. Like that fight is probably the greatest fight of all time.
Yep.
I mean, for the memes, for the choreography, for what it meant for the story, is probably the greatest duel of all time. But I didn't think that the duel at the end of Kenobi was that bad. But okay, so I'll try to keep mine short since we all ranted and we're going to be here for 6 hours.
I'm sorry.
Continue ranting. So I'm going to try to keep this short, but this might teeter on the line of like, where it's going to sound like I'm making the argument against anti-woke stuff and I'm not. Because again, you're right. It's not about Reva's character or like that she can't have her own lead role and she can't be a good character. I think she is. I think she can be a great character. Why is she in Kenobi? Right. The whole thing that 99% of people, again, with the exception of the really racist, stupid idiots who are coming at it with bad intentions and a bad heart and actually hate lead women. Like there are those people, but the majority of us fans, when we watch a show and you title it with a character that we like, we expect we're going to see the character that we like. When I watch The Witcher, I don't want to watch Yennefer for 6 fucking episodes. I don't give a fuck. I want to watch Geralt of Rivia. I want to watch him hunt monsters. I want to watch Henry Cavill be The Witcher. It's the name of the bloody fucking show. When I watch Kenobi, I want to watch Kenobi.
Hallelujah.
Fucking Kenobi. I didn't sign up. I didn't sign up to watch Princess Leia and her fucking princess adventures. I didn't sign up to watch Reva.
Up. Fucking Mikey fucking fired up now.
Yeah.
Fired up. Good. I did not sign up to watch Reva.
I hope Disney listens to this.
Her rise to power or whatever the fuck. Like, if you want to make those movies, if you want to make those TV shows, and you want to have the Yennefer show, do that. Make that show and call it Yennefer.
Wait, are we subtweeting The Witcher now?
Yeah.
I am talking about The Witcher now. Don't call it Kenobi if Kenobi's not going to be your show. Don't call it the Book of Boba Fett if Boba Fett's just going to get his nuts cut off and he's just going to sit there and whine in the corner. And it's not going to be about Book of Boba Fett.
I'm cutting myself off. I cannot watch they can't do this to my boy.
Wait, Scott, can we do something?
Boy.
Can we? Oh my God. Can you like write down your impressions after the first you've watched the first episode of Kenobi, write down like your impressions and what you think is going to happen. And then just skip straight to the last episode and see how it lives up to what you like.
Just your impressions. Watch the beginning.
Yeah. Just don't watch like the in between.
All right.
Fun.
I will.
Sounds fun. Yeah, rant over, but that's it. Stop making shows that have the title character not show up in the fucking show. That's what we're upset about. That's why this show is a bottom D tier for me.
Yeah. You know what's interesting?
Anyway, I woke up. I woke up for violence.
Yeah, I'm here for that. I just finished Andor today.
Oh, nice.
And there's this conversation.
Okay, are we gonna go to that next?
Yeah, there's this conversation where Andor's trying to convince the like shift manager in prison to like prison break, and he's like, they're not listening, they don't care. You like act like we gotta like hide from their intention, but they like don't even view us as humans, and that's how Disney looks at us too. It's the same thing. No, I swear. Because
The
we're over here,
the writers of Andor are trying to communicate to the fans.
they're like we see beloved characters and they just see numbers on a P&L. And so like don't do that to a character doesn't register with how they make stories. They don't care. They're only doing this to make money. So like we as the fans have to be the ones to discern what do we give our attention to. Let's do Andor.
Yeah, so on that Andor, for me, dude, I had zero expectations for Andor. I went into it like, why the fuck? So, okay, this is almost the opposite of Kenobi. The concept of Andor, D tier. The execution of Andor, S tier for me. I fucking loved Andor. I thought it's like Mikey said, right? Andor is the perfect example of a Star Wars story just going into one corner of the sandbox that we've never gone to, because this is a show, no lightsabers are fired up. There's like no mysticism. It's pure sci-fi, but the writing is amazing. The character work is fantastic. The pacing, the suspense, the stakes, dude, they took a D tier concept that I had zero expectations for and made something amazing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. The pacing went a little unexpected for me. I felt like it was really fast paced and then slowed way down.
Yeah.
And then like built back up, which, yeah, I just wasn't expecting that. I'm not saying it was bad. But yes, it was a great story, super gripping, likable characters, and it harkens because Cassian Andor is in Rogue One, right? That's where he was introduced.
Yep.
And that goes back to Mikey, an earlier point that you were talking about, where like, hey, like there's this thing in Clone Wars where you see what Ahsoka's doing during like one of those scenes in the movie, and then you like feel their presence there. That's what Andor did for me with Rogue One, which I already loved. And then it added that much more. I want to rewatch Rogue One now.
Yeah. Yep.
And look at this character again, you know, with this backstory.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So
great show.
That's the thing. It's like you're always, so you have kind of the two sides of the spectrum. You have Rogue One, and then you have Solo, right? Maybe not quite a one-to-one, because it's a little bit different, because Solo is a beloved character that you're in trying to enrich, and Rogue One is more of a like a plot hole / element of a movie that you're trying to enrich. But the point remains, when you take something and you try to like expand it out in its backstory, and that can either go really good or really bad. And Rogue One obviously knocked it out of the fucking park, and then built this character that is really, really intriguing, dramatic, has like, interest to me. Like I didn't think I'd be interested in him. Opposite of Solo, someone I should be interested in that I'm not really interested in his own movie. But then you get, with Cassian Andor, a show that you wouldn't think you'd be interested in, and you're just gripped by it, right? There's a drama to it. You're again, no lightsabers are fired. It's all the gritty espionage. It's espionage, spy thriller, but it's also a little bit of slice of life, dystopian sci-fi, right? You're getting a little bit of cyberpunk. I think
and it's political thriller too. Like with the Mon Mothma stuff, but interesting.
I love Mon Mothma in this.
Yeah, show. Like her whole drama was so well executed.
Yes,
dude, I would watch. Like, the prequels get a lot of flack because they're like, who the fuck wanted to watch the Trade Federation? Who the fuck wanted to hear about trade deals?
Dude, this is how you needed to do it.
I'm here for that.
But dude, if they would have done this, I'd have watched 6 hours of this. Like
100%.
Political thrillers on this.
100%. Yeah.
It's like,
political
dude,
thrillers can be a thing. Yeah. And like putting in that like underground crime world and then the rebellion parts of it. Oh man.
dude. Yeah, and
Super
like the
pumped.
backstabbing, the twists, and like the double agent shit.
Yeah,
Also, I want to get you
yeah.
guys' opinion on this. This is like such a small part of it, but just because like our backgrounds of how we like became friends and like the corporate environments that we've been in.
Oh
How
yeah.
did you guys feel about the ISB scenes where it's like they're all in that like doing their quarterly reports and they have like the middle manager?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Dude, they did a great job portraying corporate America.
It was
Yes.
great.
Star Wars corporate America.
Dude, when he
Dude.
has to like, yeah, has to like go sit at his desk.
Oh my. Okay, but there's like real parts of that where they're like, okay, so in the prison, the way the like productivity system works is all data about productivity is transparent. So you have a leaderboard and you're racing against each other. So if you're at first, you get perks, and if you're last, you get punished. And that's just a treadmill. Like the race is designed for you to fail fundamentally, because it's not fair that someone has to be punished, but that is like the corporate growth mechanism, is like whoever the underachievers are get laid off when the economy gets bad, which is
Right.
just ranking you against your peers. So yeah, it was spicy. I loved it.
Yeah. And then when you find out the way you beat the system is everyone works together to fundamentally destroy the system.
Yes.
Which we don't need to get too overt in our communism references, but it's
Sees the means production, folks.
it's a rebellion movie, though. Yeah, it's about overthrowing the system. For sure.
Yeah.
And that's Star Wars, baby. Like
Yeah.
truly that's Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we're all good with this S tier ranking. Did you
Oh,
guys?
absolutely.
What
100%.
else? Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And then to round it off, our last one, the most recent show to come out. I just finished this today, in preparation for this episode. So outside of episode 5 of this show, I thought it was good, not great. Basically for me, it felt like Disney was like, all right, we need to reintroduce all the Rebels episode or Rebels characters in live action to a completely new audience who's never watched the animated show. And they achieved that for me. But episode 5, like the middle of this season, holy shit. That again, it kind of reminded me of Clone Wars in that like that was like a top 10 Star Wars episode for me. And so that bumps it up to top of B tier for me, in that it's like not quite forgettable. Like I do recommend people watch this show, especially if you've watched these two. I think it is a good kind of continuation, kind of good reintroduction into live action. But episode 5 was just like, holy shit, that was worth the price of admission. Where is it for you guys?
Well, let me hop in here and say, because again, it feels kind of wrong that we haven't mentioned Dave Filoni at all, even though we
Oh,
talked
right.
at length about
Yeah.
Rebels and Clone Wars. So I just want to start off and say, like, Dave Filoni fucking gets it.
Yes.
So we talk about how shitty Disney is, and like how they destroy franchises because that's what they do, and they are still doing that. And I'm interested to see what happens with this whole Thrawn stuff, like with this movie. Like hoping beyond hope that it ends up being good. I don't know,
Yep. Yep.
but I will say Dave Filoni, like he is a fan through and through. He wrote and directed and created Clone Wars and Rebels and
Yeah.
also the
Look,
Ahsoka show. Like
Filoni is A tier himself.
he
This is
is
all Filoni.
absolutely a true fan. Like he understands it. He read the books. He knows the extended universe. Bro, he did his homework. He got the assignment. He knows his
Yep.
fucking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when he puts his name to something, I'm gonna watch.
Yeah.
And honestly, and I hate to say it, Ahsoka is kind of it's a bottom of A, maybe top of B for me. Not that he did a bad job. I think there's a lot of stuff when you watch Ahsoka that you see like where he's going with this and how he sees the Star Wars franchise, because he sees it the way George Lucas saw it. He sees it the way a lot of the fans see it, right? It's about the mysticism, right? It's about the
Dude,
magic. It's
yes.
about the samurai films, right? That quintessential moment where Ahsoka just like goes one blade over her head and just waits for the perfect moment to strike and then takes that dude out. Which, by the way, what a fucking missed opportunity for that fucking whatever that Inquisitor was to just be dust or whatever the fuck. That could have been a really cool introduction to like a new character from like the old Legend stuff. That could have been Star Killer. You could have done
True.
there could have been a lot of really cool stuff with that character, but you know, beside the point, with what we got, again, solid bottom of A, top of B tier. Probably it suffers less from what anything that Filoni did necessarily, because I thought again, you see all the stuff that he's setting up. He gave us probably, and I've already said this like 80 times about characters, about who my favorite character is of stuff that I've seen. Like we talked about the blind monk being one of my favorites. We talked about Andor and all that, but fucking um, uh, what is his name? Balin Skull. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
probably one of the best characters to be introduced into Star Wars in a long time.
Dude, it's
Notwithstanding the
so
Mando.
sad. It's so sad that Ray Stevenson passed away, man, because I don't know
Oh,
what they're gonna do
what
with
a
that character
phenomenal
now.
performance, dude!
I know. I hope they
Incredible.
just recast it and like keep the character.
Yeah.
But man, that sucks.
So,
Yeah.
so what I want to say, this I know I'm kind of a long walk for a short drink of water, but anyway, like what I'm trying to get at is I don't think the stuff with this show is necessarily Dave's fault or even the people in the show, because again, great performances, great characters. I don't think they were allowed to do a lot of stuff in this show
Mm,
because they're trying to set Thrawn up to be like the new Thanos
right.
of Star Wars, right? He's going to be the big bad for like movies to come. So like, I watched this show just being like, okay, this is really cool. Episode 5, absolute S tier. Like, when are they going to do a thing after this? Like, what's the next
Right.
big thing they're going to do? And then they
Right.
just don't do anything. And I don't
Right.
think Disney let them do anything with it. I think they kind of like Dave Filoni probably got his hands tied, basically like, you're allowed to set this stuff up for us, but then don't deliver.
Yeah, that's true. And that's kind of why I put it in B tier for now, because I feel like the theme with Ahsoka right now is the jury's still out. Like, I'm not quite sure about Ahsoka. Like, it had amazing moments in it, right? Like episode 5. But then another thing that kind of not irked me about the show, but one thing that was, I don't know, just kind of a letdown. And I don't know if you guys kind of felt this way too, but like I couldn't help but compare the live action performances to like the animated, right? So like for one, I like Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, but like from like an action dueling standpoint, that's just like hard to live up to. Like Ahsoka was
Mhm.
such a badass in Clone Wars and in Rebels and in Tales of the Jedi, and I don't really feel that in the live action version of her. Like I don't feel she's this, force trained Jedi that has just been through so much shit and survived Order 66 and like been in so many duels and so many battles. Like I don't like really feel that from her. And then the other thing is that like towards the end, when we see Sabine and Ezra reunite, that's why I kept referencing it as like a reintroduction to the characters, because like it really didn't feel like a continuation of the animated characters. Like when Sabine and Ezra meet up, all they do is like hug and be like, hey, "What's up, man? It's good to see you."
Bro,
Whereas like in
they're not even gonna kiss. Like what?
yeah, like in the show, they were like so emotionally like connected, and like and that goes for everyone in as part of the crew, right? Like the crew, the ghost and stuff like that. Like they all like loved each other. And so I just like didn't get that like chemistry between the characters in the live action. So that kind of like, yeah, that kind of got in my way of like fully immersing myself in the enjoyment of it. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, and you kind of hinted at this, Mikey. So I watched Andor and Ahsoka back to back. And that for me was like an awesome dichotomy because like Andor, like we've mentioned, is like pure sci-fi, no fantastical stuff, like none of the mysticism. And then like you watch Ahsoka and it's like all fantastical elements. It's like all mysticism, a lot of magic in it. And not just like the Force. It's like you get the Night Sister magic and the Star Whales and shit like that. Like that Ahsoka was like awesome. And that for me set like a spectrum for Star Wars, right? Like Andor, you can get the full sci-fi experience, no magic, no fantastical elements, and then you switch it over to Ahsoka, and it's like this puts the fantasy in space fantasy. And so like, yeah, that kind of like added to it. And yeah.
Yeah, I only watched the first episode of this one, but it was definitely way more entertaining than Kenobi was
Well, yeah.
by far. And yeah, like I haven't watched Rebels. So I was someone going in there just like, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know who Ezra is. Like, so and that's part of it too, is you can't expect everyone to watch everything. So can the story stand on its own? Because if not, I don't think it's a good story.
Then you're not satisfying anyone, right? Like if you can't even make it good for people who haven't watched Rebels, then you're in real trouble. Because I feel like, I've watched Rebels, and I was kind of like, oh, these characters don't feel the same. So then like Rebels watchers aren't satisfied. So then like, who are you catering to?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like it was fun to watch again from like an action sequence. And like, I did get like a sense for like Sabine and Ahsoka I was familiar with already from the Clone Wars. So yeah, like I would continue to watch it. I would put it in B, or I probably would put it in C. Better put it in B.
Dude, get to episode 5 and you'll put it in B. That's I'll throw that out there.
So one other thing I wanted to say is because you're right. If you can't make a show that someone who hasn't seen the prior works, like if you can't make something for people who haven't seen that stuff would enjoy, like, yeah, who are you making it for? But also you're kind of in a bad spot because there's so much history and there's so many things with these characters that you can't reintroduce every character for a new audience at the beginning, right? And I'm not even saying that's what they're trying to avoid or do at all. Like, but yeah, you're kind of in a weird spot because you can't just reintroduce a character every single time you do a new show, because there is kind of there's a timeline to it. But I think they do a really good job. The characters don't feel quite as good as they do in the cartoon. There's something about like the animated style because you're not dealing with choreography. It's voice acting, not actual acting. You're not acting on camera. So there's a lot of that stuff you kind of miss. But like I do think they do a good job with like giving these characters, like, you at least know the heart of what the character is, like what their archetype is, like what role they kind of fill for the story. Like with Ahsoka, you get this very like zen, relaxed, mystical, like teacher type character. You get Sabine, who is this character who's hot-headed. She's trying to prove herself. She wants to save her friend. Everything is in that vein. She has a lot to learn from her master, but the master has a lot to learn about how to teach, right? You do kind of get these archetypical like elements. So you do kind of get who these characters are in a very brief amount of time. But it is something special for the people who have seen, the previous stuff. So it does make it better for sure. It doesn't, I don't think it necessarily is wrong because it doesn't explicitly tell you who these people are. But like Scott said, he still found it entertaining even without knowing all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to say is to your point about the action. I don't remember his name, but there's a very, very like popular, like the guy who choreographed all the prequels. He did all the lightsaber duels for the prequels because that's probably what fans would equate is probably the best lightsaber action we've ever seen in Star Wars was from the prequels. Yeah. Forget his name, but he's a very, very like well-known
Ray Park.
Like,
is that who you're talking about?
Is that his name? I don't know.
He's the dude who. Oh no, I'm thinking of the guy who played the physical portrayal of Maul and not the voice.
No. Yeah,
But yeah,
the choreographer, like the fight choreographer for the prequels, um, absolutely, like that's what how Anakin, or Hayden Christensen for Anakin figured out his like classic like spin behind the back
yes.
bullshit that he
The
does like eight
twirl.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
the twirl. I mean, all of that comes from this choreographer. I wish I could remember his name, but you see the loss of like that in these live action shows. Like
Yeah.
the duels just feel off. They feel wrong. We talked about it with Kenobi. Like the weight of the lightsabers feels wrong,
Yeah.
and then
Ugh,
like
I hated
with
that.
Ahsoka, like you can't necessarily do all the things you can do in animation because you could just animate whatever, but
Right.
like there's still like a lot of missing space between like something that's serviceable for like, oh okay, yeah, they're fighting with lightsabers versus what that guy was able to do with the prequels. If they had brought him back, like that would have been an absolute banger because you had Hayden Christensen, and being able to impart that like and see that with Ahsoka, I think they would have done a really good job. I didn't think the lightsaber duels were bad necessarily, but yeah, it definitely kind of felt stiff and a
Yeah.
little like
Yeah.
not great in some
Right. Dude,
places.
it's funny you mentioned this because I have been thinking about this. And what's funny to think about, dude, is that like Hayden Christensen got a lot of flack, got a lot of hate for his portrayal as Anakin, during the prequel era. But like now that we're getting so much Star Wars content and like looking at the lightsaber content in particular in this new like Disney era and these new films and TV shows, like you really see how talented Hayden Christensen was with a lightsaber. Like outside of his dialogue and his like acting and stuff like that, the dude was honestly like amazing with choreography and like fighting with a lightsaber. He really was, he lived up to the chosen one in that regard. Like
Dude, go watch the behind the scenes stuff, from Revenge of the Sith. Like there's a lot of behind the scenes from like the DVD stuff where they
uh
talked about like Hayden, like how Hayden trained and like did all the choreography and stuff. Like the dude, like he lived that shit. Like
yeah.
he did the work.
Yeah, and I feel like that aspect is kind of missing from this new era of Star Wars. Like, don't get me wrong, it's kind of like you said. Like, I'm enjoying it. I think the lightsaber action is fun, but it's just there's a definite difference in like the quality of like the lightsaber action. And I think some of it has to do with choreography, but another aspect is that like these actors just like aren't as good as Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. And yeah, Mikey, I've watched some of the behind the scenes stuff, and I remember there was one thing where they said Ewan had to like they actually had to slow down or change some of the choreography because Hayden was too fast for Ewan McGregor, which
Yeah.
is like crazy to think about because
Nice.
they're both so fast as it is. But
Yeah.
there was like an interview where Ewan McGregor talks about it. He was like, yeah, like they were trying to do some choreography and Hayden could do it, but like I couldn't do it,
Wow.
which is like crazy, man. It's crazy to think
Yeah.
about.
That's really cool. Yeah, he
Yeah.
did a great job.
Anyway, that wraps up our tier ranking. Pretty even spread, more
Okay,
even
I
than I
have an
thought it was going to be.
observation about this spread.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
I guess we're gonna leave off whatever those cartoons are.
Yeah, none of us have watched these, so
Okay, fair enough. So what's interesting to me is that this spread is strongly weighted for new characters on top. And the
oh
further
yeah.
you go down, like those characters are rehashed or
Oh
reused,
my god, that's so true.
That is a great call, dude.
you
Wow.
know?
Yeah. So the trilogy, yeah, and then boom, Kenobi, Boba Fett
Yep.
down here. And then
Yeah.
Ahsoka, like right in the middle, where she's like not new, but she might be new to a lot of people because if you haven't watched Clone Wars Rebels, then she will be
Right.
new.
Right. But all of the ones that like slap are
New,
new
new, new.
stories.
That's funny.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Holy cow, man. Like you know, go back to The Last Jedi. If you want to go outside the script and tell a new story, that's great. Don't try and jam it into a pre-existing narrative just
Right.
to increase the audience, the eyeballs on it. That's a hack. That's a
Yep.
cheap workaround to try and boost numbers, boost sales, but it doesn't retain sales because people walk away going, "What did I just watch?"
Yeah.
This isn't what I
Right.
like. But when you let creators, and that's what'll happen. So that's the bright side. I don't want to be all negative about this. There's some great things in here. There's going to be amazing young creators that come up through a giant studio like Disney. It's like the Empire. There's going to be really talented people that work for the Empire, and some of them are going to get sick of it and go off and do their own thing and continue to make
Yeah.
really good stuff.
There's going to be Thrawns and there's going to be director Krennics, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the worst that can happen is the ones that are, you know, they don't have anything additional to offer. They just take orders from the studio. The studio
Yeah.
is like, hey, we really need a baby Leia sequence. Someone needed to say no. I
No,
know,
yeah.
like, you can't say no, whatever, but like, you have
Dude,
to. If
I
you're a
think that
creator,
happened in The Last Jedi because bro, Ryan Johnson outside of The Last Jedi, fucking banger director. The guy has made nothing but bangers. And then The Last Jedi came out. And I think he got too caught up in the glitz and glam of Lucasfilm and Disney and was just like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Yeah, just let me direct Star Wars, man, please.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's too much. What I'm asking is too much. Like, especially if you're new in your career, or you're just trying to get a
Right,
paycheck. You're like
right.
just trying to ship it. You get paid either way, so it's like, okay, like that's
Of
what you
course
want.
you're gonna
You
listen
sure
to the
that's what you
studio.
want?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But sometimes the stars align, and a talented, like, obviously a ton of really talented people come together to make these stories, and they do have enough leeway where they need to go make a Rogue One or go make an Andor.
Yeah, dude, and that is the theme I think of what made Rogue One and Andor so good is because like the dudes who made these films, like Tony Gilroy, he he grew up or not grew up, but like he cut his teeth making like action films and spy
Mm,
films and stuff like that. I think he was attached to the Bourne franchise, like
cool.
Bourne Identity.
Mhm,
And so he has gone on record saying that like he wasn't a Star Wars guy growing up,
mhm.
but he liked the sandbox of Star Wars. And so like, yeah, that's just like one example of like a dude who's like, he's not enamored with the glitz and the glam and he's willing to say no. Like he probably had a vision going into Andor and was like, this is the kind of story I want to tell. And, like, let me do this. And it paid off.
Yeah, and Andor's for adults. It's pretty
Yes.
dark.
Very clearly
Yeah.
for adults.
It's pretty
Yeah.
gritty.
So I want to hop in here. I just want to say one thing. I don't know what the audience is, Ernie, for your podcast. I don't know if you got some aspiring writers out there. You got people who want to be directors. I don't know. Maybe follow your dream, whatever.
It's
I
me
would
and my
ask
bros
you,
watching this. There's like 16 views.
Sweet.
no,
All right.
listen, it could be
The
anybody.
bros.
I'm writing, I'm saying this for posterity for anybody who comes along and happens to find this piece of beautiful media. Three guys just sitting here ranting about what they like and don't like about the corporation of
Hell
Disney.
yeah, brother.
Now listen, whoever's listening to this, I want you to hear this. Number one, obviously, take chances, tell stories that are unique. Like, right, that's kind of the theme of what we've all been saying. But for the love of God, please stop shoehorning in characters that tell an agenda or a narrative or whatever it is that you think that audiences want into things that are supposed to be about other characters. Okay? Stop
Yep.
doing it. I don't have a problem if you want to tell a story about Riva or Princess Leia. Like if you want to do those movies, if you feel compelled and you feel like you have a really good narrative, message, story, even like I know there's people like the neckbeards out there will talk about. Well, I don't like when they shove the agenda down my throat. I'm not even talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
have an
That's stupid.
agenda or quote, you have a message that you want to tell. Fantastic. Go tell it. Put it in your movie. Make a movie and tell that message. That's how art works. That's how we like change the culture of things, right? Is we put it out there into the medium and we allow people to consume it and change their perspectives. That's all great.
Mhm.
Stop putting it in to things that we already love and enjoy and trying to like staple on things onto existing things, right? And just retell number one, retelling the same thing over and over again, or two, just like completely assassinating the characters that we've come to love because you think that it's time to make them take a back seat like in their own show. Okay?
Mm.
So
Yep.
whoever's out there listening to that, please don't do it. If you're gonna make a Boba Fett show, make a Boba Fett show and then make your other show later. Okay? Please.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, all that stuff. And watch Star Wars. Maybe we'll be back. Maybe we'll make another tier ranking with the original films
All
and the
Star
prequels.
Wars content.
All
Dude,
Star Wars content.
So I actually
including the Legends novels. Oh my god, no, that would be
dude.
so long.
That would take a long time.
When I was preparing for this episode, I actually did because I wasn't sure if this was going to be just Disney or not. I made a list of every piece of Star Wars media that I've seen and made a list of it. I was prepared. If we had to
That's
talk about it,
awesome.
I was going to be ready.
That's awesome. Hey, if this pops off, maybe we'll be back. Oh my god, we'll sequelize and make a trilogy of tier rank.
Yes, please. I will say that this process rekindled my my love of Star Wars.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I have to be selective in where I apply that.
And honestly, I totally respect that. Like there's going to be the Star Wars fans who watch everything no matter what. But then, there's the Star Wars fans who are like, dude, I loved the OG trilogy. I love the prequels, but like, I don't have time to watch all the shit Disney pumps out. Because they pump out a lot of shit.
No. Protect your
Scott, can I ask you a real question? I want to get real for a second.
Okay, be for real. This
is for real. Do you think that you will introduce Star Wars to your daughter?
Ooh. Yeah, inevitably. And it would start with the original trilogy because that's what got me started.
There you go. Yeah,
the original trilogy, and it's just like she doesn't have to like it or take off with it like I did, but yeah, I would just be like, here's this, and you know what? It's probably inevitable that we have Disney in my house while she's growing up because my wife likes Disney. My wife doesn't watch any of the same content that I watch, but she watches Disney, so I support the Empire out of my pocketbook every single month.
I support the Empire.
So that stings for me, but I will be looking to enjoy the stuff that they do that is a good job, even if it's on accident and the producers just missed, or the executive directors on the Disney side just let those slip through the cracks, and it was an accident that they sometimes don't.
Oh, you want to do an Andor show? Yeah, sure. We need something.
Yeah.
And the guy makes a fucking banger.
We've got a hole, so go ahead. We don't care.
Oh,
don't worry. We're working on Kenobi. You can do your own thing.
You just do your little show.
It's actually going to have a really interesting take on corporate America and productivity, and wow, huh?
The Disney execs are like, what do we got on the docket? Oh, we got Andor. It's like, oh, that's just going to be one season. What are we planning on after that? And then Andor comes out and everybody fucking loves it, and they're like, oh, guys, we gotta do another season of Andor. Yeah. This is actually what the fuck is happening right now.
Another season of Andor, no more seasons of Kenobi.
Yeah, no, we're good there.
Or Book of Boba Fett. I'm gathering that Book of Boba Fett isn't going to get more seasons.
Yeah. Why, Mikey? Why did they call it Book of Boba Fett? Did we
I
ever
don't
get
know
that?
why they called it the book because I do. Well, I think because it originally was going to be like a chronicle. I think they were going to do like because so spoiler, Scott, if you end up watching, and I don't want to ruin the whole thing for you, but it is a lot of like it's not told in a linear story. Like
Right,
there is
right,
a
right,
lot of
right.
like flashbacks, so it's like it it takes place pretty much right after the Sarlacc pit thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It chronicles him escaping the Sarlacc pit, and you see how he survived in the desert, and then it cuts to present time, during the Mandalorian stuff, and then it cuts back. So I think the whole point was that it was going to be like this, like kind of like a chronicle. The book of Boba Fett was going to be like his whole like story.
Mm.
And so who knows? Maybe if they had done a season 2, maybe they would have done like him as a kid. I don't know, but that's kind of the vibe that I got was they were trying to do like this like mythological, not myth, but like like fables esque like chronicles of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, there was a series of books, like young adult novels about young Boba Fett during, when the
Yeah,
prequels came out. So I had read those and already had like this whole what used to be just canon, like story of how Boba Fett
didn't they
transitioned from being a
didn't they
child.
talk about didn't they talk about how Jango Fett got his armor like or not got his armor but like how Jango Fett was a Mandalorian and like how he like um I don't even
Right.
remember all the stuff, but it was like there was some stuff about like the backstory of Jango Fett, since
Hmm.
Boba is technically just a clone.
Right.
But yeah, there was a lot of stuff in the old legends about how like Jango Fett like was like a part of the religion and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, which I really liked. I really liked like the Mandalorian part, those stories. I mean, because the Mandalorians even go back to like the old Republic, you know.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So always that was one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars lore to explore. So when Disney said they're making a Boba Fett show, and then the reviews are like this sucks. My thought was
Oh,
and still is, I can do a lot of things with my time. Sounds like that's not going to be a winner.
Right.
so really quick, guys. I don't know how much you guys know about like what their plan is for what they're doing in the future. But I'd be really curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on like what they're doing because obviously they're doing like the Thrawn stuff. There's going to be a Thrawn movie,
Is it going to
but
be
they're
a
also
movie or is it going to be a TV
yes,
show?
no, they're going to do a movie.
Oh shit. Okay.
I think they have I don't remember who the director is, but
They've just announced a new Star Wars movie, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but they
they're
fucking
doing
announce a new movie or TV show like every week, I feel like. And then we just never hear about it again.
the
That's
thing that I wanted to mention is that they're doing that, right? They're doing the like what's going to be like they're going to do well they announced they're doing a new Ray movie that's going to take place well after
Right.
episode 9, right? So they're doing
Yeah.
that.
Oh
So they're kind of
God.
breaking things into like these different eras. So there's like the Ray era, they're doing like this Mandalorian era, like the post Return of the Jedi era stuff with Thrawn. But then they've also talked about they're going to do slates of movies that are going to take place in the Old Republic. And that was what I was curious about. If you guys had heard anything about that and what your thoughts are on them doing movies in the Old Republic.
Oh, I'm down for that.
yeah.
I mean, yeah. The more Old Republic shit that we get, fuck yeah. That's like
Did
an
y'all
era.
play KOTOR?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, dude. Yes. Make that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bring
that's
Darth
the shit we
Raven.
want.
Yeah, that
Dude,
is
Darth
what we'd
Revan
like
would
to
be
see.
fucking incredible. Yes,
Yes,
dude,
dude.
that's what I want.
That for
Um,
me is like a no-brainer safe option.
I
Like
feel
them
like that's
going
what we
with
thought
Ray
we
and
were
stuff.
getting for so long, and then it just hasn't happened. And again, like, why the miss? Like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Look, I love Daisy Ridley. I think she's an incredible actress and she just got screwed over by crappy writing. But
Yeah.
like I'm just not interested in like more Ray stuff. Like
That's tough.
let's go
That
back. Let's
that's
do
a
the Old
really
Republic.
tough place for the franchise to be in. And Disney's done that twice because they've basically put the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the same position
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
Captain Marvel not getting great reception from fans, and
Bro.
they set
Yeah.
her up to be the character,
Yeah.
just like they did with Rey, and they failed on execution very similarly
Yep.
on both characters, in my opinion. And now they've written themselves into a corner, kind of.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised when Mikey said that they're doing the Thrawn film, because I do feel like Star Wars, like the Lucasfilm division, is like terrified to go back to movies. I feel like they're comfortable just pumping out TV shows. They've
Yeah.
kind of found their niche, and they're like, holy shit, all
You
right,
could do video
Andor's
games
doing
too.
great, Mando's doing great,
Yeah.
oh, Ahsoka's doing pretty good. Like, so yeah, and the films just did so bad outside of Rogue One that they're like, oh god, should we do movies anymore?
Well, hopefully they take pause. Like, hopefully, like, the failures in a lot of the recent Marvel movies like makes the money talk.
Right.
So they're not just throwing dumb movies out all the time. And also, like, that's the problem, is they can claim canon at this point, and they're like, yeah, like, we own this shit. So whatever we say is the real story.
Right.
And then they do a terrible job writing the story. And it really devalues the brand at the very
So
least.
so do you guys want to know what the slate is? I looked it up. Do you guys want to know what the slate is for the new movies that are coming out?
Okay.
Oh god.
So there's
I don't know if
Star
I'm ready
Wars.
for this.
There's Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which is a TV series that's coming out possibly in 2024. Supposedly, it was under the working title of Grammar Rodeo. Star Wars Skeleton Crew comes from Spider-Man No Way Home director John Watts.
Okay.
Takes place during the post Return of the Jedi reconstruction that follows the fall of the Empire.
Mhm.
And then they're going to do Andor season 2 in 2024. There's the Acolyte TV series that's going to supposedly also going to come out in 2024. That's set during the High Republic era.
That could be cool.
Maybe what I was thinking of was a TV series and not a movie that's going to take place in the High Republic. But
I mean,
I'm going to keep reading.
sounds cool.
Supposedly, also they've confirmed that there's going to be a Taika Waititi Star Wars
Oh
movie.
yeah, I heard about that. But there's like no details on that, right?
Not that I'm aware of. It's just he's going to be making one
Interesting.
supposedly in
I like him.
2025.
I
Yeah.
like him as a director.
So is
Yeah.
it going to be a comedy?
I bet it'll have comedic.
It
I bet
has
it'll
to.
be like a
Yeah.
Thor,
Yeah.
like a good action comic kind of film.
Mhm.
Oh no, wait, no, I'm right. Okay, so here's the movie that I was thinking of that's taking place in the Old Republic. So James Mangold is doing an Ancient Jedi movie.
Oh
At
fuck.
Star Wars Celebration 2023, we learned that Logan director James Mangold is directing a movie about the very first Jedi Knights.
Dude, that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, so this is all we know about it. It takes place roughly 25,000 years before any of the other films and will be, quote, biblical in scope.
Holy shit. Well, that's ambitious.
Seems
I
like
do
pretty
like
high. Yeah,
I do like James Mangold. I like him as a director. So hopefully, yeah. Hopefully he'll have a good spin on that.
yeah, and then Dave Filoni and John Favreau are going to be doing a movie after all this like TV stuff.
Okay,
They're going
good.
to be doing the Thrawn movie.
Good.
Supposedly
The more
the film is
Filoni
said,
Favreau. Yeah.
supposedly the film it's said to be a tie together for shows like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka. So very clearly that we're all saying that's the Thrawn movie. We just don't know what it's called.
Right. Okay.
And then Rey is gonna have her. Oh, God bless Rey. Gotta have Rey. Everyone look at
Yeah.
Rey.
They've invested
Her
too
movie.
much. They have to make another Rey movie.
Yeah.
A lot of money riding on this.
Oh, this is interesting. There's also going to be something called Star Wars Rogue Squadron.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
It's supposed to be a
I love that
high-speed
shit.
thrill ride.
Yeah, I mean I am down for anything like aerial combat or space combat centered. Love that shit. So
Wait, why are they doing a Lando movie?
okay, I'm gonna end the episode there.
Yeah, let's just end it there. I don't know. Fuck.
Wait, why are they doing a Lando episode? Cut.